Yeah. You know, well, yeah, a little bit. You know, the year that I retired, my dad, well, before I retired, you know, I had a brother that was paralyzed. He died, my dad died. Luckily, he died before and after STAR testing, which I was in charge of.
Table, huh? Yeah.
So I was able to go home.
I like this tripod.
They sell.
Yeah.
And it's disgusting. It's $75 for a little plastic tripod, but it's so worth it.
This tripod was about $180. Luckily, it came like that, where it's got this little area here for that. And my 15-inch even fits in here if I needed to put the 15-inch in there. So. But the 11 is so nice.
Only got that one. Good thing came with $1.
Yeah, I got the super heavy duty ones too, and they don't have a spreader like this. I could do that. But there are braces attached to them, and I thought about doing that too. Attach it to the side. So.
Hi, how are you? Good to see you. Hi. How are you?
Oh, good.
Yes.
Hi.
Yes.
Okay, my parents are trying to watch it from live stream, but I don't know where they go. They go to the campus. I have them up on the campus. Once I'm on the podcast. They were going to come, but my mom's not feeling well, so I was like,
Right here, you're going to click on Santos.
We did work.
It says Watch Live COS Accreditation.
that wasn't on there. Did it just get up
It
there?
just popped up. I had it set to publish at 6:45.
Or you can go to COS/COS TV.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, you do it too?
Well, I just can't
See, I didn't know if you did yours live or if you posted it.
No, they want you to go to their site.
responsible and adults and functioning, you know, like.
Either works.
Ours is
We're
no
all-
commercials.
We're all one big family.
Yeah, we are, but you got commercials.
Renting.
No, we don't.
There's no commercials.
No, that's why we have that weird setup we have.
I thought yours was next.
We did. We got the pro version.
Yeah, it's $19.99.
It's even embedded into our COS webpage.
Yeah.
You see COS all around it, all around the screen. So.
Terry.
Hello.
Tell me how you doing, buddy.
Good. How are you?
Hi, Stan. How are you?
Good, huh?
How are you? Good to see you. Yeah.
Must be nice.
So they can see that now.
Yes.
You probably need to refresh.
Probably. Yeah. If they just refresh the front page, it'll say Watch Live.
Hey, if you go to the laptop, you should be able to see it on the page that I pulled up for you.
I was just telling
It says
him
Watch
that
210 Connect Live.
It's my son's best friend.
We saw you guys fraternizing at the beginning of it.
Yeah. He's Jay's boss, because Jay's the tennis coach. It's hilarious. It's hilarious.
Are you on the
know, Brad
webpage
calls
that I
on
left
Sunday
open?
morning. You should.
It should say now Watch COS 210 Connect Live.
It might need to be.
And Jay
You
said,
might need to refresh the page. I don't know if you know how to do that. You see it?
Quit it.
Huh?
Quit it. Start it.
Yeah, but they won't know how to get back to the page.
Is it on a website now? How do you just hit Control R?
Mom, are you on the page I left open? Can you see something that says Watch 210 Connect Live?
I think it needs to be refreshed.
What do you see?
I started tutoring at the adult literacy
Okay,
center
scroll up to the, okay, hit Control R.
that I when we were downtown, I would always, you know, on my way down to the district, like, what am I doing?
Okay, and it should pop up there.
GED,
You see a
citizenship.
picture of the 210 Connect.
Yeah.
You can actually, it's live right now. You can see people
Two
walking.
women, and I never did.
Is that on? That's on the main page from the campus, right?
I gotta just click on the Watch Live, yeah.
It says Watch Live.
And I have
210 Connect. Click on it, and you should be able to see the state. Okay. All right. Awesome. Okay. I'll see you later. Oh my gosh. Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Terry.
Writing is really hard. And then my other, another student passed in Spanish, and she just wants to get better English, so we just, and I have a student with citizenship. I really like all that. Yes. Because if I don't, if I can't make it on Tuesday, I'll see you next week. You know, it is that. So, but you know, when you live by a lesson plan or to-do list, It used to. But honestly, I love it. But our kid, well, my youngest is not married. Brad lives in Florida. Oh, and I've got 2 grandsons in Florida. CJ is just turned 9, 3rd grade, and Evan just started kindergarten. It's terrific, but you know, no, it's not. It's really good. They're close. You can get in the car and you can drive to them. Oh, you're so lucky. Yeah. Is Rick still the superintendent? Are you there? Then you retired? Oh,
It's more like 7 a.m. or 7 p.m.
Nice job last time handling conflict resolution and responsibility.
Hi, Paul. Hey, Bob, how you doing? Was there any conflict? I don't know.
Well, I just, the one,
yeah.
I just want to say thank you.
No, I probably don't get copies either. Somebody Thanks for coming tonight. Thank you. Well, look who's here sitting on the floor.
I know, right?
Couldn't fight us eat again, huh?
I've just got to be where my natural position in life is.
Yeah, really. Congratulations on your first edition. I guess that's out.
Thank you, yeah.
Congratulations on being the editor.
Thank you.
You got a good crew to ride herd on?
The mic's live, so I'll say yeah. I wish we had more of that.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure you do wish you had more of them.
The
But I think we're
perennial
gonna have
problem.
to. Yeah, I think.
You gotta pimp us out and join one more.
Sure.
I know. You're right. I do.
You gotta just,
But
you just gotta slap newspapers in their faces when they say, "I'll join, stop hitting me, I'll join."
Yeah. That works, doesn't it?
It really does. I've used that strategy on people before.
You have, huh? That's why you got such a big staff.
I didn't say I did it on a lot of people. I just said it works. That I've done it.
I got a big staff too.
Thankfully, our
Hi Terry, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Paul.
Good.
How are you?
Nice to see you again. Yeah. Thank you for doing this tonight.
I didn't
I've got no life. That's the advantage of the upside.
So are you streaming? You streaming too?
Yeah.
You're streaming? You're both streaming?
Everyone's streaming.
Everyone's streaming.
Streams everywhere. Yeah.
And you do the COS website, you do campus?
Yeah.
And are you also streaming to Valley Voice? So how's that working out now with your competing interests here? Is there a conflict?
No, not really.
No?
It's actually really good. We work with the same people now, so we get a discount.
You
Finally got rid of the Selma Enterprise, thank God. Awful printers. Don't print anything. I'm going to say that on an open mic.
So who's the campus printing with?
Willem's over in Fallon.
1 year he had something.
Yeah.
That's the corporate world, like I said.
Good. I actually haven't seen the print. I've been on campus.
Oh,
When did it come out?
about a few weeks ago. Yeah. It's for the people like him, like you.
My email was just catching up with a bunch of stuff. Good. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You do. It's hard. Yeah.
done yet. Just a
I get her position, Juan, and I get yours too, but. Yes,
Bob, you're still working.
But it's what you say, there's a routine to it, and it's an adjustment.
I know your son. Yeah.
Yeah, what to do when? Oh, that's
I know anymore, it's just very
yeah, like the babies. You've only been in the trenches 4 or 5 years. I
Well, no, you did the smart thing, guys. You do
Good evening, welcome to 210 Connect. My name is Paul Hurley. 210 Connect is a monthly public forum co-sponsored by First Presbyterian Church, which owns this building, and the Visalia Next Delta. We've been doing 210 Connect forums for more than 5 years, and every month we devote the forum to a topic of community interest. The principal philosophy of 210 Connect is to promote and encourage open discussion and dialogue among people about the things that concern our community. Just before we get started, I just want to, there it is, thank you for participating in 210 Connect. There's a little plug for 210, the building, and First Presbyterian Church. First Pres does not charge us for using this building for our forums, and they're very generous in supporting 210 Connect. If you wouldn't mind, if you could make a contribution to 210, there's a little jar back there at the table, and it's like a collection at church, except this is not church. And this is not a church collection. I want to make it really clear that any of the proceeds that we collect from donations at 210 Connect forums do not go to First Presbyterian Church or the congregation. They go to the operation of 210, the building. Okay, I got that out of the way. This is kind of an unusual 210 Connect because usually we meet the second Monday of the month. And obviously is not the second Monday of the month. But back in May, or April, is it April or May? May? Back in May, we had a forum, and we invited colleges, Sequoias, and other leaders in the community to discuss what does COS mean to our community. It was kind of a broader forum than we're going to have tonight. It was an examination of the role of College of the Sequoias and its relationship to various institutions in our community. And we had people from not only COS, but the business community and political community and others to talk about that relationship. Now at the time, COS was dealing with a report from the Accrediting Commission for Junior and Community Colleges, or is it Community and Junior Colleges, ACCJC, that said that they needed to show cause that they could keep their accreditation. And we're going to explain all that and how that goes. But COS at the time was just responding to that, coming up with a plan for adopting remedies, changing procedures, and basically answering the questions that the ACCJC had directed to them about how to improve College of the Sequoias. We didn't really talk a lot about the accreditation issue that night. As I recall, I think we even asked you to just limit it about 10 minutes or so. But we did ask colleges of COIS to come back in the fall when they were ready to present their report to the ACCJC and report to the community about what they'd done, what had changed, and where they see COS going in the future in response to this. So that's why we're here tonight. We're here to talk about COS 2.0. You've probably seen that around the building in a few places. We're pretty good about getting that brand out anyway. And here with us this evening are all personnel from colleges of COIS, so I'd like to introduce them, starting at the left end of the table. Colleges of COIS President and Superintendent Stan Carrizosa. COS Vice President of Academic Services, Dr. Jennifer Bagel-Lacerna. President of the COS Academic Senate, among other things, Dr. Thea Trimble. we probably got a few titles we could lay on you there, wouldn't we? Next, a member of the president, actually now, of the COS Board of Trustees, Lori Cardoza, who represents Tulare, sort of southern Tulare County, right, thank you. And finally, president of the COS Student Center, Fidel Madrigal. And obviously we got a cross-section of people here to explain all the aspects of what COS 2.0 means. So I'm going to turn it over to Dan Carrizosa to sort of lay the background here, what happened and where are we at with COS 2.0.
Okay, well, thank you, Paul, for that introduction and for the opportunity to be back here again this fall to give you an update on where we are in our response to the show cause report, or the show cause order, and our preparation of the show cause report. A little over 8 months ago now, February 11th, 2012, at 2:57 p.m., we received the show cause letter at College of the Sequoias, which said that because we had not made enough progress in key areas over the previous 6 years in our accreditation cycle, that we were going to be placed on a show cause order. It was a bit of a surprise to the college at the time. If you look at the areas where we received sanction, I guess the silver lining, under the first part of the dark cloud is that we weren't sanctioned or we weren't called out for the quality of our educational program, for the outcomes that we were producing, for the things that we know have been traditionally very strong at College of the Sequoias, a rigorous academic program, award-winning nursing program, police academy, fire academy, career technical training. The commission had no concerns with our programs per se. They felt like the internal operations, for the most part, the structures of our institution were not well put together, they were fragile, and because of that, they put perhaps the long-term integrity of the institution at some risk. And while they weren't institution closing issues in and of themselves, the fact that we had been given the previous 6 years, from 2006 to 2012, and even had originally been mentioned in a 2000 accreditation, 10 years earlier, we had been given opportunity and direction to get those structures better put together. Things like governance and how we make our decisions, planning and how we plan and evaluate the institution, allocating resources and how that resource allocation has to happen in cycles aligned with the institution's planning, and then the student learning outcomes and the service area outcomes. What is it that we're actually expecting to accomplish in our courses and in our programs, and how do we measure that? So with all of those structures being very fragile, the commission felt like after the previous 6 years, not having gotten far enough along the line to get those things taken care of, that we were going to come under this order to show cause why we should continue to remain accredited if we weren't able to shore up these systems. So we took that very seriously. I think we were a little bit surprised, but as we looked internally and we started to study ourselves as the accreditation process forces you to do, honestly, we became more and more realistic about our status. And we found, at least from my perspective, we found more merit and we found a little more validity in what the accrediting commission was telling us. We got over the initial emotional reaction to something like this. We got over being defensive about it. and we decided to join arms, faculty, staff, students, and Board of Trustees together to attack this with its intended purpose, and that is to make College of the Sequoias a more soundly functioning institution with good systems for governance, good systems for planning, good systems for evaluation, and good systems for outcomes and assessments. And knowing that if we did that, we would build an even better version of ourselves, we adopted the contemporary metaphor of COS version 2.0. Like you have iPhone 6 or 5S, whichever is out now. You have Microsoft 11. We wanted to be a new version, an upgraded, more efficient version than our previous selves. We set out to do that with a very deliberate course of action. We established a 40-member response task force. We split that task force into 5 subgroups. Each of those subgroups further engaged greater numbers of the faculty and student body, and those subgroups were each divided up around one of the main recommendations in the accreditation report. We partnered with the Academic Senate. They became the leaders in providing faculty summits to bring forward the information so that faculty-wide we could take a look at what we were preparing in the way of ideas for solutions and in the way of planning responses to the particular actions that were going to be required. Our board engaged itself in a series of workshops. They called on the ACCJC Commission themselves to come and do training with them. Our board members began to further engage themselves in local workshops and conferences that helped to underscore the board's role in accreditation. And we as a team actually, I think, began to see that this was an opportunity. Once we really looked in the mirror and we realized that there were some parts about College of the Sequoias to be better and stronger, we saw this as an opportunity to create the shift in culture necessary at COS to lay the foundation for going forward in a new and better direction. And by new and better, I think this is a series of structures and systems now that account for a lot of the things that used to be a barrier to meeting some of the eligibility standards in accreditation. For example, we now have a way of talking about how we govern and run the academics and the operational part of the institution separate from how we represent the employees and deal with collective bargaining and negotiations. And those two are very important elements, but there have been times in the past when they have commingled themselves and one has affected the other, and because of that, we weren't able to fulfill as many of the requirements as we were expected to. And we have to be able to keep those separate, and I think that's the underpinning of a new culture that's in place now. I think there's a culture for improved communication, transparency, evaluation, and ongoing improvement. And finally, some stability. What you'll see in here are a series of structures that aren't going to change again at the whim of a new president if he or she should come in, or a new senior administrator as a vice president, or a new chairperson or president for the Academic Senate. The systems and the protocols that have been built here only change now through the process of evaluating them within themselves and through the collaborative measures that are structured in how they're put together. So we think we've built the stability for the college to be able to function more consistently in the future and therefore be more effective, more efficient. I want to, as I pass the microphone down the table, I want to thank all of the faculty, staff, students, and board and community members who have participated in this process with us. We really do, and we can show you proof on sign-in sheets and committee lists that hundreds of people have engaged in this process, both inside and outside the college. And so when we think of College of the Sequoias as a community college, I can tell you without a doubt that that's exactly what we are. We are a community-based college with members of the business community and faith community and faculty and students that care about College of the Sequoias and have stepped forward over this last 8 months to invest their time and energy in helping to be part of the solution for us. So that's a little bit of the backdrop. We're coming up on the deadline now of October 15th. We'll send in our final report. The accrediting team will be here to visit with us in November. The commission holds their meetings twice a year, once in January and once in June, so they will take up College of the Sequoias on their January agenda. And by February, we'll get an action letter back from them in response to what our visiting team submits in their report. So with that, I'm going to hand the microphone down to Dr. Lacerna, who's going to talk a little bit in more detail about before and after and where we are.
Just before you relinquish the microphone, what are the possible outcomes?
Thank you for asking, Paul. It's kind of a range. It's a continuum. You know, when you're on a show cause order, you're at the, you know, the most urgent level of response. You move from there back to what's called an extension of your show cause period. One of the outcomes is we can be given a little bit more time to remain in our current status, to show that an annual cycle can be completed, and we can verify that we're going to follow through with everything we've said we were going to do. You can move to a warning level, which is a little better than an extension. You can move to a probation level, which is a little bit better than just getting your show cause period extension. It means you've done enough planning and shown enough foresight in your documentation that they're willing to put you back on probation and give you another year and come back and measure. Or you can get back on warning, which is even a better level, believe it or not. Warning is a good level. And that's probably the highest level. After warning, you would go back to full accreditation. So we're going to be really happy if we get an extension of our show cause period, and we're going to be especially excited if we get something better than that, either probation or warning.
I got a hunch just about everybody in the room knows how important accreditation is. But why is accreditation important to a college?
Well, it's really your lifeline to being a credible institution. When you're accredited, you have your direct connections to you are the transfer college to four-year colleges and universities. You give credibility to the certificates and the licenses and everything that you issue. No one wants to be part of a non-accredited institution. It gives you that outside external validity in the quality of your work and in the level of productivity that you produce as a college, as an institution. So it's our lifeline. Without us being an accredited institution, it would be very, very difficult for a community college to continue.
Stan, the entire idea of accreditation is sort of like undergoing some change. Statewide and nationally, there have been a number of other colleges who have gone through this same thing that COS is, and they're continuing to. We know San Francisco City College actually lost their accreditation officially. Well, that's still kind of pending. How do any of those events affect what COS is doing?
Well, you're right, it is a process that's been undergoing some of its own evaluation. To be an accrediting commission, you have to be sanctioned by the Federal Department of Education, and they have a process for that. So a number of different entities apply to be an accrediting body. The ACCJC is just one of those, and it's a composition. At its core, it's a group of peers. It's designed to be a peer evaluation program for the growth and improvement of the institutions. And what's happened is they've had to go through their own accreditation. They have to be sanctioned by the federal government. So they've been held to their standards, and in trying to comply with their standards, we're feeling the reaction to that. And one example is maybe in the case of the ACCJC, they've been too lenient. In some cases, when they've done accreditations on California institutions, they've not made them, they've not insisted that those institutions make improvements fast enough. There's what's called the 2-year rule in the federal statute. And you should be not giving an institution more than 2 years to correct a dysfunction. And I think the ACCJC was probably a little more lenient with that because they were called out on that by the federal government. They're now adhering to that more strictly. We are feeling the effect of that.
That kind of happened with COS because their first criticism of the college was what, back in 2006?
Actually 2000, and then 2006 it was accelerated, and then 2012.
Anybody with any questions? Anybody have any questions for Stan? Okay, he's going to be up here. I'm sure we'll have more questions for him as it goes over. Dr. Lacerna, what has changed, or what is changing at COS 2.0?
sorry, just about everything. I wanted to say also that we're live streaming right now before we start, and our campus newspaper is amazing, our student newspaper, and they've just done a great job of covering all of this, as well as our TV news. And my 7-year-old hasn't seen me much, and he's watching, so I just want to say hi to Mateo. Go to bed. But everything is changing. And I think one of the things we all realized is that as Stan just mentioned, we had a warning or some recommendations from the ACCJC back in 2000. We were put on warning in 2006. And 5 of our recommendations for 2012 were the same as what we had in those earlier reports. So we had made a lot of change, but I know that if we had not gotten the sanctions that we have, we wouldn't have been able to make change so quickly. And honestly, the college has done an 180-degree change in many, many areas. One of the examples I can use is in student learning outcomes and assessment. That's a major part of the academic, I guess, the integrity of a college is what are our students learning, and do our faculty look at how their students' success in their classes improve, how do they improve their teaching, assess those, look at data to support that, and then make changes based on instruction or in the type of testing they do, or in some cases, even change the order of courses that they offer and things like that. And our faculty were doing that, and they were doing a good job of it, but we didn't have a method to see how many people were assessing their outcomes, what type of outcome work was being done. It was kind of a grassroots movement and not as much support from administration as there should have been. And so one of the major changes we've had in 7 months is that all of our courses, every single course at the college that was offered in spring and is an active course has a student learning outcome attached to it. And all of our programs have student learning outcomes attached to it. And in addition, as of yesterday, 94% of those had assessments attached to them. So our faculty are assessing, they're looking at student results, and they're making changes based on what the evidence is. We didn't provide a lot of opportunities for our faculty, staff, and our administrators to get together and talk about what are our students learning, what kinds of success are they having. And we have had every month since February opportunities for people to get together and talk. We've had a teaching and learning institute with over 80 faculty members, staff members showing up just to talk about what our students are learning. One of the things that I know Dr. Trimble's going to talk about is campus climate. And one of the things that really stood out to me is, we had a teaching and learning institute the last couple years and 15 people showed up. We had 80 people show up this year. We had 2 summits, one on a weekend that our academic senate put on and one in the evening. And we had close to 100 people show up to these summits. It's all voluntary, and it's because people really care about the college. And I think that's one of the things that you see. At those summits, we had faculty members, staff members, board members, administrators, and students all sitting at tables together talking about how we can improve the college and how we can improve the way we work together. And it wasn't about who is an administrator, or who was a faculty member, or who was a student. It was all one group working together. So I think that's an example of one of the major changes that I've seen. We've also done a lot to improve the equity for our students. We have, as you know, 3 different campuses. Our Tulare campus just opened in January. We have our Hanford campus that's been around for a long time, but we just opened that new campus a couple of years ago. And yet a lot of our services were still focused in Visalia. And so we've made a really good effort to talk about the 3 campuses to provide equitable services for library, for our bookstore, for our counseling services at all 3 campuses. We've had to, we've all talked and we've had some meetings about our budget situation. And so we've had to really, there's no more money, but it's reallocating human resources and physical resources to have equity at the different campuses. And that includes our evening students and our students who are online. So there's been a lot of effort to make changes in those areas as well. So those are a couple examples.
Counseling services and library services, you mentioned that. Those are up on your Scroll, they're not up there right now, but
If
they
you look
were.
at that one right there, that new Ask COS, that's been one of the huge changes that we've put in. It's right from our webpage, and a student can go in and ask any type of question about COS. How do I register? Honestly, the number one question we get, because we have this evening phone, is how late is the library open? So they can go in now and type that, and it cuts down kind of on the staff number of hours we need. It also cuts down on the counseling type of hours, because students would go in and ask a question about how do I register? Well, now they can plug right into Ask COS and say, how do I register? So there's a lot of stuff that was happening where you needed a lot of personnel or time, or that a student who works during the day couldn't get access to, that they can get from that Ask COS page. We have also added evening counseling hours, and for some of our specialized programs as well, like our Educational Opportunity Program and Services, EOPS. And as far as library, we've extended the hours on the Visalia campus, the Hanford campus, and the Tulare campus for an actual librarian to be in those. We're in the process of expanding our books, and we have expanded the book access on all 3 campuses. Oh, and we added a service called Ask a Librarian. So if there's not a librarian available at Hanford or Tulare, they're able to call in and get a live librarian at the Visalia campus. And so we've really expanded all of those services.
Counseling services have become really important for colleges and Sequoias. Could you explain why?
Well, one of the things that a new project, I should say, from the California Community College Chancellor's Office is called the Student Success Scorecard. And that is also available from our homepage. That was it up there. But if you go straight to our homepage, you can get access to what's called the Student Success Scorecard. And that has student success data in a number of areas from our College of Sequoias, but it also, if you go into there, you can look at any college in California, any of the California community colleges, and look at student success data. A lot of the services that are available to support students, especially students needing basic skills type of support, it happens through our counseling department. So we've really realigned through this whole process. Some of the things we've done is realign our strategic plan and our district objectives. We had 134 district objectives last year. And I don't know about you guys, but that makes me really tired of thinking of 134. We've narrowed those down to 8 district objectives, and 3 of them have directly to do with counseling services and improving the counseling services so our students find out from the very beginning, the first semester, what kind of access, what kind of support they're going to need, especially when they're coming in and needing the basic developmental kind of support. And I know Kevin's going to show you right now. That is the Student Success Scorecard. And that's really based on the basic success data for our students. And it looks at transfer rates, it looks at our persistence rate, so how long students stay, do they persist, do they get to 30 units, do they get to completion of a degree or a certificate or transfer, and for remedial, that's what we call basic skills. How are they, if they come in at the basic skills level, how do they succeed or progress through that level? And each of those are what we call like stop out, I don't know the exact word, I can't think of the exact word, but like progression markers. So if a student gets to 30 units, that's the first progression marker for a student becoming successful. And so we measure each of those. So after 30 units, if they make it to the second semester, then if they make it to 30 units, and then if they make it to the degree. So those are the kind of things that's measuring.
Benchmarks. A lot of data up there. Do you have off the top of your head what sort of goals the college has set for maybe
Great question, Paul. We're in the process of doing that. So one of the things that the commission also requires us to do is to set institutional standards for student success. And they really align with the ones that you're seeing up there. And so what we're going to be doing and over the next 6 weeks is setting our institutional standards. And there's 6 different areas that the commission requires us to set standards on. And they're very similar to those, but it's how do our students persist, how do they, what are their success rates, what are their transfer rates, what are their graduation rates. And so we're going to be looking at that over the next 6 weeks in both in the Academic Senate. We'll be presenting it to the board. We'll be looking at it as our senior management team, and then in our district governance senate, and talking about what are those benchmarks that we want to set for our students for the report to the commission. And just to add to that, one of the things in the areas that we were found lacking was in our ability to look at data and make decisions based on data and change. And so that's one of the things at the core of all of our decision making and the models that you saw is using data like this, using data from institutional set standards and making decisions and making change based on that data, whether it be student learning outcomes or overall success. And one of the things we did, we hired a new director of research, planning and institutional effectiveness, and I just want to introduce him, Dr. Dolly Ozturk, who's sitting over there, so he can wave. And that's another big change that we've made at the college because we haven't had that resource. And now he's completely overwhelmed with requests for support and things like that, but it's going to make a big difference at the college because we'll actually be able to have good, solid data to base our decision making on.
In your presentation, Stan especially, but some of the others have also to communities, you talked about the new organization of College of the Sequoias. I wonder if we get those charts up on the screen that were in the booklet that we've got around here.
It's in the PowerPoint.
It's in the PowerPoint.
Okay.
Where's Kevin? Oh, there he is.
He's behind the computer.
And if we get those up on the screen, then maybe Dr. Lucerna can walk us through that a little bit.
Okay, so this is the COS 1.0. This is 1.0. That was, go to the back to the other one, Kevin. So 1.0 was what our, that is, okay, not that. The other one, the really long one, is what we used to look like. That's what we used to look like. That was all of our committees. I mean, it's overwhelming. And some of those had existed for years and years and years, and nobody knew why they still existed. Through this process, go to the next one now, Kevin. This is what our new governance and decision-making process looks like. And we have a model that shows what type of decisions each one, so go back to each one of those committees makes. If you go to the next slide, the one you just had up, in December, our Academic Senate, our Institutional Program Review Committee, our Institutional Planning Committee, and that was the groups that got together. And we said, what is our decision making? What does our governance and decision making look at? This is the chart we came up with. And as you can see, it was all over the place. There were arrows everywhere. And so from that, that group started the first phase of coming up with the next page, which is our new planning model. So we went from all those boxes and millions of arrows to this. And it's very simplified and it's clear. And like Stan said, whether Dr. Trimble's the Senate President or I'm the Vice President, those processes are going to happen with or without us because they're going to be set and and as you can see, data and outcome assessments are at the center of everything.
Hold that slide on there. Does anybody have any questions about that? Or anybody need any elaboration? It's actually a pretty simple flow chart. It goes from strategic plan to resource allocation, implementation, and then back to studying the results and incorporating the strategic plan, and you start all over, basically, is how it works.
And it's done on an annual basis, so all of that will happen every year. Every year we look at our strategic plan objectives, our program review, action plans, and then how we allocate resources, and every year we report on that annually.
Any questions for Dr. Lucerna? One more thing I'd like to ask you that might be a segue to Dr. Trimble. What is Dialogue Day?
That's a good.
It's sort of like, it might be a little
okay.
segue into college climate, but I thought I'd ask you about Dialogue.
I want to say that I mentioned earlier that we didn't provide a lot of opportunities for our faculty, staff, administrators, and students to talk about student learning. And so one of the things we realized is we actually had to put time into our daily work for faculty to have a chance to sit and look at, okay, I've done this assessment, and here are my results, now what do I do about it? And to talk with each other, to talk across disciplines, to talk within their disciplines about their student learning and their student success. And so we've added in each semester what's called Dialogue Day, and it's a chance that our faculty can get out of the classroom and go work together and talk about student learning. So we're going to be doing that once a semester. Well, we do it in our, at the beginning of the semester in our annual convocation, but then we'll have an additional day each semester within the semester, midway through, to talk about how's it going, what changes are we going to make, what's going well, what needs to be improved.
Yeah, I know from the standpoint of faculty, and full disclosure, by the way, I am part-time faculty at COS. But from the standpoint of faculty, they've always complained that, well, I've got time to talk to my colleagues. I'm too busy teaching classes and planning lessons and grading homework and assessing things. And this apparently is an opportunity to you can free yourself, the faculty can free themselves of all those things and talk with each other about improving the college. At least that's the goal. Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Lucerna. Dr. Trimble, maybe you could explain the academic senate before you get started on your part of this program.
The Academic Senate is actually one of the governance structures that is instituted by statute, by state statute. And every community college has an Academic Senate, sometimes called a Faculty Senate. And they basically are responsible for what are called academic and professional matters. And so basically it has to do with what happens inside the classroom and some of the processes for planning and processes for evaluations of students, process for evaluations of programs, curriculum, grading, things like that. So our Senate is composed of members from each of the teaching divisions, as well as the library. We have also voting members that are adjunct faculty. We have we have a staff member who's on our Senate and a student who's on our Senate. And we meet twice a month. We talk about, we vote on things like curriculum. We board policies. Certain board policies come to us for approval. Some don't. Depends on whether or not it's an academic or professional matter.
In a general way, how has this process affected what you do in the Academic Senate, or the academic aspects of the college itself, which is, after all, its job number one, right?
Yes, it's affected the workload substantially. All of the new processes that you've seen here have come through the Academic Senate for discussion and approval. So that means that after the Accreditation Response Task Force subgroups did all of their work, then it would go to both the Academic Senate and the District Governance Senate for their input, their review, and eventually their approval. So we were having additional meetings. We had, I think for the first time ever, a meeting in the summer to make sure that we could get the materials through that we needed to get through on time.
What are the kind of obstacles did the Academic Senate encounter in going through this process?
Well, I think a lot of the, initially was just the learning curve of what accreditation was and why it was important. Even beyond the, if we don't have it, we're shutting down, which is important. But
that would get my attention.
It's also quality assurance. It's also a way to make sure that the money that's going to College of Sequoias or any college is being well spent. That's a lot of what accreditation is about. It's an outside agency saying, yes, you are doing a good job, you're fulfilling your charge to your community. And I think that some of the things that we've seen with San Francisco City College potentially could have happened here if we hadn't gotten in and got educated about accreditation. It's not supposed to be punitive. That's not what its goal is. But their charge, the ACCJC, is to make sure we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. And there are peers. The commissioners are faculty. The commissioners are presidents of community colleges. The commissioners are public people. The commissioners are from four-year institutions. They are our peers. They said this is what we need to do. So I think that a lot of what helped us is getting in and getting that education about what accreditation is and what it isn't, which also helped, I think, somewhat with our climate.
So there needed to be a big change in thinking about this
Yes.
whole process. It's not punitive, it's actually help us grow.
Exactly.
Okay, how does that lead to the campus climate? Because the ACCJC did specifically define campus climate as one of the things that needed to improve. Why so, and how has it changed or improved?
Well, why so is that as in several of the other recommendations, that recommendation had come forward in 2006. And public disclosure, I was in charge of accreditation in 2006. But we only got warning. At that time, we were also in a situation where they said that our campus climate was such that we could not fulfill the requirements of accreditation, and that we were not getting along well enough to work together towards common good. And that's what the commission sees as the problem with campus climate. It isn't what they're not telling us we have to get along. They're telling us that we have to work together for the common good of the college. And our relationships had deteriorated to the point where we could not effectively work together for the good of the college. And that's what they found, and that's why they made that recommendation.
Putting you on the spot a little bit, but you care to, maybe guess at some of the reasons of that? Were there people in silos, or were there long-standing antagonisms or jealousies, or
all of the above,
all
and more.
Okay.
I think part of the issue is that no one likes to change. Everybody's comfortable in doing what they do, even if it's not a good thing, because it's a comfort level. And so whether it's the college, towns, families, we have certain ways we do certain things, and because that's the way we've always done it. And the tendency then is to just keep rolling along. Will be a change of an administrator, a change in a policy, and everybody would say, oh, it's okay. Wait another couple of years, it'll just go back to the way it was. And I think to a great extent, a lot of faculty looked at student learning outcomes that way. It's the new fad. It's the new fad. I've seen them come, I've seen them go, this one will go away too, don't worry about it. And so they didn't. It's the path of least resistance. And that was it. And at that time, understand, we had huge turnover in administration. We were having different presidents, we were having different vice presidents, we were having new deans. Every time somebody came in, they had a new way of doing it. And then they would go and somebody else would come and they'd have a new way of doing it. And because we had nothing written down, everything kept changing. And at some point, everybody just says, I can't change anymore. And when you're resistant to change, I mean, that's human nature. People are resistant to change.
Yeah, I think at one time I counted 9 different presidents or interim presidents since the turn of the century at COS, the last 13 years.
And I've been here for almost all of them.
Tell me, interesting about, Stan mentioned that now you put in place procedures and a plan that will not depend on a change in personnel. It won't depend on a new president coming in and saying, okay, we're going to do it this way now. Was that the case before, and do you believe that this is sort of the remedy to that?
I think it's going to help. I don't think it's the remedy for this. Because the remedy for this has always been the same thing. We have to hold ourselves accountable. We always had processes. But we didn't hold ourselves accountable to those processes. And that's all of us, faculty, staff, administrators. We did what was expedient at the time. And we can have it on paper, it can be great, and I think this is really good. But unless we work it, and unless we say, no, you can't do that, President of the Academic Senate, because that's not your job. That's District Senate, or that's budget, or that's somebody else's job, or it's the union's job. Unless we make that break and hold ourselves accountable, we could be back here in 3 more years. And that's why we got all the way to show cause, is because we backslide. We make improvements, and we do, and we have. And then a couple of years go by and we just backslide.
Okay, well, it's probably a good thing to keep in mind throughout all of this, that it's not done just because you got the document.
Exactly.
It's not done by a long shot. What about campus climate? How has it changed? How is it changing? How do you expect it will change?
I think it's changed quite a bit because what I've seen, what I find to be the most encouraging is that people, faculty, staff, administrators, students, everybody is willing to at least listen to the other side. And I think that one of the things that Stan mentioned at the beginning, which I think the commission had wrong, is I don't think we have a climate issue. I think we have a culture issue. Because climate is relatively easy to change. Culture is not. Culture takes time and effort, and it has to be concerted effort. So I think we have a culture issue, and our culture issue is that we have to be willing to listen to the other person. We have to be willing to accept at face value that what they're saying because they believe it. But we also have to be willing to accept that sometimes when we look at the data, it's going to prove us wrong. I'm a scientist by trade. Data can prove you wrong. And that's okay, because we learn from that, and we change from that. And if we can do that, then we'll make it. And we'll make it off show cause and into accreditation, and we won't have to be back here.
Any questions so far? Anybody? We have one over here.
You know, this is just so elementary theater. But when you talk about student outcomes, just give me a statement you've attached to a course outline that says what a student outcome is to be. I mean, I remember when we had to add critical thinking to all those course outlines, and that was an issue. So now you have student outcomes.
Right. One of my student outcomes is that at the completion of my physiology class, my students will be able to utilize the scientific method and create experiments and analyze data and come to a conclusion. So that's the student learning outcome that I have.
They probably were there all along, they just weren't very
Yes. It's just a different way of looking at course objectives. And part of the problem we ran into is that our understanding of what student learning outcomes were and are wasn't really grounded. You know, so we had some people saying, oh, they're just objectives reworded. And then you had others saying, oh, no, these have to be really all-encompassing statements. Then there was you need 2. No, you need 8. No, you need 1. Somebody needed to make a decision. You know, and so the rest of us who really weren't up on the information, we were floundering. What do we do? And part of it, as Jennifer said, is that we had a lot of trouble just trying to, where do we house them? When we put them in our computer program, it didn't work well in our curriculum program. So, geez, that was a mess. I mean, literally, I will be willing to bet you that about 80% of the faculty are like me. I have at least 3 boxes of assessment data. You know, I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know where to put it. So I have all those tests, I have all those assessments sitting in boxes underneath my table and behind my door. And one of the things the Dialogue Days has helped is it's given us a little time to go back through and look at some of those. But it's just a different terminology, and it made people think that, oh my God, this is something amazingly different and new, and it isn't. I think the biggest shift has been that assessments can't be grades. You know, before it was like student success was how many A's do you have? How many B's do you have? How many C's do you have? And while that's important, that doesn't always tell you how much the student has learned. So that's why the shift now away from grades to the assessments.
Grades are still there, to be sure. Any other questions? It's kind of, the whole student learning outcomes thing is kind of tricky, and it's really sort of took the college by storm, but it's been probably beneficial for everybody.
I think so. I think so.
Okay, Lori Cardoza, you're here to give us the perspective from the.
You just put us in the right order.
We're gonna get to you. we had you here to explain the perspective of the Board of Trustees throughout this process and going forward. I guess I want to start with sort of the tough question. If the Board of Trustees' job is to sort of oversee the college and set policy and direct the administration, how did this happen from the Board of Trustees' point of view? Was it something that was missed by trustees? How do we get into this situation with the accreditation?
Well, I'm one of 3 board members here and 1 former board member, Bob. Thanks for coming. I mean, I've been real fortunate to sit on an amazing board of board members who we all trust each other and we listen to each other. We don't always agree, but when we walk out of the boardroom, we are unified. And I will say that I too, like Stan, remember the minute he called me on that February day, because I had messages from him and thought, boy, the college is on fire, something's going on. And I remember, you know, a few nights for the first time, except for my first day on the board, and John remembers that day. My first board meeting 10 years ago wasn't fun either, but I really could say I lost sleep over it because I pondered that one question, what did I miss? And then even as a whole, what did our board miss? And I think so much of what Thea's already said and Jennifer and what Stan started out with is we were a personality-driven college. And as board members, we fiscally, I feel, have done an outstanding job of watching our budgets. We've built facilities, we've built programs that are wonderful. To be honest, it seems so elementary, as Jenny said. What did we miss? All these things seem to be moving and we spent so much time working so hard to move, and now we get this. How did this happen? And I think as a board, I personally will say I looked at accreditation as a moment in time, something we had to get through. And then all the other stuff that we were getting at our board meetings and seeing that was progress. And that's still true today, but I think accreditation now is a way of life at COS. And even though we will always be somewhat personality driven, that's how humans are. We have a culture, we have cultures, we have climates, we have all these things, and that's what makes us human. But I also believe that as me as a board member, I realize now, and I think as a board, we realize how important data is and how important the governance model is. So if Stan's not here tomorrow, we can expect the same from our next president as we do, you know, him. And I think as a board, we're changing. We've learned some things. I know that policy has become a lot more important in the questions we ask. Budget, resource allocation, how does it happen? You know, we need the data to make sure we're spending the money where it needs to be spent. It's codifying a lot of things we did already and putting them all together. I don't want to repeat what's been said. I agree with everything that Stan, Jennifer, and Thea said, and the board's role is to oversee that and not micromanage it. I think 2 of the questions, and they didn't present them today, and I had kind of thought about those and answered them, and one was, you know, how do we question administrators? And when I first saw that question, I immediately said, we don't question administrators, we question our superintendent president, and then he can question the administrators. And as board members, we have to understand that role and hold people accountable, but I believe that policies and accreditation, the accrediting board, when we did our workshop, you know, basically started out by saying, we're there and we're responsible for all of this. So right away, you know, you get a little defensive and think, well, if we're responsible for all of that, then this is all our fault. Well, we didn't point fingers, but we all have a little bit of the blame to take because we did have an institution that would do great, and then we'd stop, and then we'd change people, and we would change deans and vice presidents. And codifying all that's important as a board. We need to look at it and make sure that we have a president that understands that model. Actually, we like it now because we have one that created it. That's even more important. But as board members now, it's up to us to see the data, to check the scorecard, to make sure our resource allocation, and to listen to our academic senate and listen for maybe the little red flags when they're being put up that the climate's changing or that things aren't so good, and be able to really put it into a bigger picture instead of being kind of a one-track board.
Don't mean to belabor the point or, you know, sort of offer an excuse for you, but I've heard it proposed that one of the problems with the Board of Trustees over the last several years is they were distracted by a whole bunch of things that were going on in the college. You were building new buildings, you were opening new campuses, you were passing a bond, you were switching college presidents several times, and you were dealing with some labor issues that were demanded. Anything to that?
Yeah, and I guess when I first hear that, not to be defensive, but when I hear the word distraction, I think I would have to say that was our role as board members. Those were all very important. I think they were prioritized, and I believe as a board we did prioritize those, and all of those should have had the component of student success and institutional planning and strategic planning. And I will say we had all those plans, but as Jennifer said, they were too big to fit into the other pieces. And I think now for me, seeing our new model, I understand my role in each of them now. Instead of it being, this year we're doing this plan. This year in May we look at the budget. As a board now, I think all of us understand it's a cycle and we have to move through it, and all of them have something to do with the other. One doesn't stand alone, just as accreditation does not stand alone.
So how things change in the day-to-day operation of the board in how you are relating to the administration and how you conduct your meetings and how you focus on these issues?
I'll be honest, our board, in terms of the way we operated, that hasn't changed a whole lot, because we operated, I believe, in a very trusting, democratic, and my board members can stand up and say otherwise now, but I think that is the one area that our college I'm real confident is that our board, we may disagree, but I don't feel any of us are there for our own personal agendas or pet projects, and we're able to call each other out. What we've become is more asking more questions and knowing after the workshops we've attended how to look at policy in a different light and ask and make sure resource allocation and institutional planning are all connected, and to know our roles so that we don't micromanage the college, because once again, it's easy to get sidetracked. And I think Stan laid out, we have to know that there's a difference between, when we're between our union and our academic senate, there are lines, and as a board, we understand those, I think, better now.
Has the underlying foundation of anything sort of changed?
That was one of my questions, and I wrote down, I think the foundation we had before is gone, and we built a new one, and now it's up to us to build upon it, and I think that personally for me as a board member, I think we have a new foundation, I truly do. Not that we had a really bad one before, but we can build on this one, I think, a lot sturdier structure.
Okay, well, I'll skip the question of why do you think this might not be repeated, because obviously you're confident that it won't be. Any questions for Lori Cardoza? Or anything else? Jimmy, he's here. Oh, wait a second.
Well, I could be heard, I'm sure.
I'll come back.
Okay.
It's just like it.
No, I just was going to mention that Stan also has had a committee made up of citizens from our district who have been meeting regularly with him and with staff and been updated on everything that's going on in terms of the changes that are being made, and all of this, of course, that we've been introduced to also, and also received a lot of input, I think, from those folks, and there's a cross-section of people from the communities that they represented, and so that's been an additional kind of thing that's been going on as this has been happening.
Kind of like a comment, not a question, but anybody? Oh.
For full disclosure, I'm a retired COS faculty member. One of the things that I've always felt that the college operates under two models that are not particularly harmonious. One is the model of management, labor, and union negotiations, and the other is the model of shared governance and the academic senate. Lori, you said now you have an understanding of what the proper relationship is between the union and the academic senate. I look at all the planning, I don't see union ever mentioned. Could you explain for me just what that relationship is and how it should work? Because
well, I will be honest and say that, when we look at this whole picture, and I guess when you look at the union, they are one of the assets at the college that we as board members are supposed to protect and take care of as well. Maybe we don't always agree, and we need to learn, I think, to disagree. But in terms of academic senate and student issues and learning, the board has a specific role there. And in dealing with contract negotiations, those, sure, they overlap. Don't get me wrong, I understand that they do and they always will. But in terms of the way we move through our governance model and slowing things down in terms of if it's affecting students, I think as board members, we know we need to try to keep the two separate and move them through the process and allow those at the institution, the academic senate, the institutional planning, they can move. We need to, as board members, feel confident that the process is working, and if things will move through, then we're not a personality-driven college. We're moving through the right processes and following policies and procedures. And if those aren't working, then as board members, we need to allow for change in those. But we need to follow the policies and procedures that are there and work in a transparent manner. And like Thea said, I think it's important that we know we may not always agree, especially when we have budget cuts. You know, when I got on the board, we were facing $8 million in cuts. And I look back on that and think, my first board meeting was 400 people saying you can't lay off 80 teachers. You know, and I felt like, what else do we do when we may possibly get cut $8 million? And I think if you have a climate and a culture of trust, some trust, we may not always, I know that, you know, I'm not trying to be Pollyanna and think this is all going to be great, but I think you have to develop a level of trust that creates at least an academic senate, a faculty union, and a board that understands the budgets, and we can all work together to see, we have to at least agree on the numbers and where our college is and if we're making success. And I think a few years ago, we didn't even agree on that. So I think there in and of itself is one of the issues I know we had as a college, and I hope not to go there again.
Stan, you have some comments about how the bargaining units fit into this whole picture?
Yeah, I think it's not deliberate that you don't see union kind of labeled in any of the structures because there's classified employees union and there's the adjunct employees union. I think when we went to designing the models, Thea mentioned that the academic senate, the governance senate, the student senate, we went back to the law. We went back to the education code, to Title V, to SB 1725. And the way that the different entities are designed in the law to participate in that shared governance model is where we zeroed in on assigning authority. And of course, the authority for us as employees in our unions, especially the representatives for our unions, lie in the master agreements and in the personnel-related laws for collective bargaining. So early on in my description where I talked about trying to create this vision for us, this metaphor where we're on two roads, it's a 4-lane highway, 2 lanes going both ways, and we've got 2 cars traveling the same direction. One car is governing the academic and operational parts of the institution. We've got to be able to adopt board policy, pass curriculum, make course modifications, put assessments in place, and that's what keeps the college running. Those are the things we have to do to remain accredited. And as Thea said, that's our quality assurance to you as a community, that we're going to be an accredited institution. In the other lane, the car driving right alongside of us is our collective bargaining processes, union representation, employee representation, advocacy, employee rights, workplace, and that car's traveling right alongside of us. Occasionally, you know, they get closer to each other because they're related. Maybe a passenger jumps from one to the other. But what we were having from time to time is we'd have one car, you know, spin a Brody and block the whole other lane. And we've got a crash right here. And then when we get to the intersection, there was the ACCJC waiting for us as a college all to arrive at the intersection, and none of us made it. So I think what we have better now than we did before, Lori's exactly right. We're not Pollyanna. It's not going to be like everybody's going to love everyone all the time. But I do think we have the ability to disagree with a greater amount of respect, and we've, I hope, diffused some of the energy that used to be spent. There's a well-known faculty member on our staff who said that the way of life at COS used to be, I don't like you, I disagree with you, therefore I don't like you. And I think we're changing that. I think we can disagree with each other now and not have it be mean and not have it be personal. And that's an improvement over the previous culture.
Thank you. That's comfortable.
I submit that there's another passenger on that second car too, and that's community support and participation in things like passing bonds and teaming partnerships with your business communities, et cetera. So it's complicated. Let's get to the perspective of our students, the people that are most affected by this, the largest body of individuals at COS, the largest community, and probably the ones who, when this first came down, had the most fear going through them right away. What was the reaction from students? What was your reaction when you first learned that, oh, we've been told to show cause by the ACCJC, you might lose our accreditation, the college might have to shut down. Where am I going to go?
Well, I guess that was the reaction right there. Where am I going to go? What's going to happen? What are we going to do? I believe, so just going off of my personal reaction first, when the ACCJC first came, it was my first semester. I had no knowledge of what their purpose of them being there was at the time. Then hearing down the grapevine, oh, COS is closing down. What? Why is this happening? So I made it a point, I guess our class as ASB made it a point, to figure out what exactly was going on and why they were there. And going into what exactly their purpose was, then of course we figured, they were there to evaluate, how COS runs. A lot of the students' reactions was, oh, okay, well, we're closing down. I guess I better pack up my things and find another college. That was kind of just my perspective of how everybody else saw the whole, being on probation and not being accredited right away, on the first visit. If you can, Kevin, can you please go back to the COS 1.0, please?
This one?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
So does anybody see Associate Student Body or Student Senate up there? No? Okay. Kevin, can you go back to the 2.0? There we are right there. And that just shows how much this process has changed, especially for the students. The students never, if you really looked, had a say or a voice. Yes, there were representatives there during committees, academic senate, faculty senate, but now with the way it's been structured, students do have a say. We have now restructured the way we run things. Before it was associate student bodies, now it is student senate. When you think of an ASB, you think of it being more high school. Now this is a little bit more formal. We do have an agenda, just like there are, the board of trustees hold their meetings, or the academic senate holds their meetings as well. We do meet every Tuesdays from 11 to 10. 11 to 12, and they are open to the public and the community. Anybody can come in and sit through the actual meeting and listen in, and if there are students or if there are any concerns, they are able to come to these meetings and actually bring them up, and we put them on the agenda, and from there we discuss, okay, for class, for example, I heard, these, for say if this business class got cut, and students did have a concern about that, they can come in, they can speak to us and ask, what was the decision behind that choice? What was it that Student Senate did to actually, I guess, come about that? Now there are representatives at each at each committee, and we do have a vote, I guess, that goes towards the level of those concerns.
Would you say then that students, at least from your perspective and serving on the Student Senate, are feeling more empowered under this new structure than in the previous one?
I would say that exactly. I would actually that's, I would say that exactly.
Didn't mean to put words in your mouth.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. No. I would believe, students feel like they have more of a say. They believe that they actually have a purpose for actually not only just being there to get an education, but actually to do something on campus and make something happen. Like I said before, you never saw the Student Senate or ASB anywhere in just the model. Now, we are actually implemented right next to Academic Senate and District Governance, and we believe, we have the opportunity not to make a difference.
Is there anything off the top of your head? Is there anything specific that the Student Senate has said to the other elements in the participatory governance structure, that a directive that says we don't want to do it this way anymore, we want to do it this way? Is there anything like that has come up so far?
There's nothing that we've actually implemented or made a choice on I guess on that type of level, but we are discussing something that's going to be our, I guess, our first biggest decision, and that is, we call it English 251. I guess there is.
I'm familiar with the term.
Yes. It's pretty much the concern of is English 251 really necessary, I guess, as a prerequisite to get into, I believe, a social studies, I believe it was a social studies class. We believe that, having that foundation of English 251 before you get into a social studies class gives you that much more of a benefit to succeed in the class. Or is it not really necessary? Should we just let students bypass that and go straight into social studies without taking English 251? And that is something that we actually are it's actually on our agenda to discuss this Tuesday, and going to see which way we're going to lean, whether English 251 should be a prerequisite or not.
Cool. I wish I could be there.
Yeah. Oh, you can.
That's really great.
Oh, yeah, it is.
About the college climate, from a student perspective, have you seen it change? Have you seen indications that it will change, or was it even an issue for you?
It was an issue. It definitely was an issue. We saw it from the first day of class in August. A lot of students asking the main question. It wasn't about the curriculum or if there's going to be a curve or are there going to be a chance to miss classes. It was more like, we heard the school's closing down. I'm here, and I was like, I'm here, and I'm hearing all these things, and it was more of a panic. It was more of a panic at the beginning. Luckily, I believe.
I'm only going to get the 3 credits for this class.
Oh yeah, that wasn't even yeah, exactly, and that was so you could say that the climate for the students was in panic mode, but luckily I believe that we've done a good job of getting our officers and our senators to answer questions for the students who are actually in class, to take that role, be that leader, step up in class and be like, this is what's going on. The school isn't closing down. We are still accredited. We're still perfectly fine. It's just there's just some minor things that we need to fix and tweak, and when they come back, we are going to get that letter saying you passed.
Just some minor things.
Yeah. Little things.
Anybody have any questions for Fidel as far as the student perspective? Actually, Fidel, your perspectives are very refreshing for this discussion.
Hi, Fidel. I'm not a student, but I'm a parent of a student. And I'm just curious how the Student Senate incorporates the students who are going to campus in Tulare and in Hanford. Do they meet over there once a month or every other month? A lot of those kids don't necessarily always come to the Visalia campus. Are they being disenfranchised by being over there and not on the Visalia campus? And how do you intend to incorporate them into the Student Center?
That is actually a very good discussion, and we actually just talked about that at our last board meeting. It was brought to our attention last semester in the spring that there wasn't a great connection with the Hanford campus, of course the Tulare campus not having been open yet. So it was just mainly more of, what is it that we can do? How are we going to relay the information that we know here over to the Hanford campus? So what we're in the process of doing is hopefully picking a few days once a month, taking a bus from our board, going to the Hanford campus, going to the Tulare campus, speaking with their student representatives, because they as well, we are the Student Senate board, but we also have representatives over there on those campuses, and just going over there, letting them know what's going on at the Visalia campus, letting them know, what decisions have been made, what it is that we're going to do, and then asking for their feedback, and going back and then implementing it, because it's just like that. It's not fair that everything that the Visalia campus is the main focal point of everything that's going on. We do have students that are concerned at the Hanford campus and the Tulare campus as well, and that's huge because they have a say as well. It's unfair and unjust just for them to just sit there and like, well, okay, well, what's going to happen? We are actually taking matters into our hands and going to go visit those campuses and visit the student representatives, and then from there they can let their students know they can take action. Maybe having their open forums, having I guess a little table, with having the students that come up and ask just questions about accreditation and what's going on.
Inclusion of those campuses has been a huge issue in this whole process, hasn't it? I mean, it must have complicated things a lot to have these two other sites, and they're both growing, and they have to be included too, the whole plan. Have you noticed any change about whether or not students are going to go or stay, or anything related to this?
I believe that it's affected our enrollment of how many students would apply, that would actually admit to COS, who would want to come to COS. That's just my perspective. Of course, hearing anytime that our school's going to close down, you're going to flee. You're not going to want to go there. It's like, well, if the COS is going to close down, there's no point. But I believe that with the students that we do have on campus now, and the way we are taking accreditation and opening it to the community, and hopefully relaying that information back, to Visalia and everybody else, and also going to, high schools as well through the Welcome Center. That's a whole different side kind of thing that we do over there. But I believe it's fine. I don't believe there hasn't been any that much of a change affecting students whether they want to attend or go to COS.
Enrollment numbers?
Am I on?
You're on.
Okay. One of the things, I think Fidel is right. There's a lot of rumors out there, and the two that you hear is, oh, the campus is closing, so your credits aren't going to count, which isn't true. And but the other side of it is that we're coming back from a budget deficit that's huge, and we went from 3 years ago having 10,000 students on what we call a full-time equivalent student, 10,000 3 years ago, to 8,400 this last year. And the reason for that is that we get funded by the state for a certain amount for those full-time equivalent students. And so for the past 3 years, we've been unfunded for approximately 1,000 full-time equivalent students per year, which is a huge cost to the college. So the past 3 years, out of the Academic Services Office, we've had to make a lot of cuts for budgetary reasons to our course offerings. So unfortunately, the result of that is the other rumor out there that you can't get classes at COS. So the result of you can't get classes at COS and they're closing anyway has caused some impact on our enrollment. We're doing a really good marketing effort to say that neither of those things are true. And we do have classes. We have classes this semester that are still available, that students short-term classes. We have a math class starting tomorrow, Math 230 in Tulare, that needs more students, and it starts tomorrow. And so we do have space for students, but unfortunately I think kind of the combination of both of those things has impacted our enrollment. But we have a big marketing campaign that's starting and that's been ongoing that's saying, come to COS. We're doing a huge campaign for the fall. There's space. We want you. We're not closing. Your credits are going to count. And I think people hear the fear out there is that because of the sanctions that we have, that we aren't accredited anymore. But we are accredited. We've never lost our accreditation. And so students can come. Everyone can come, and we do have space for them.
But are your numbers down this semester? Do you know yet?
They're about they're exactly where they were in last fall. So they're equal to where they were last fall.
84,500.
We're at about 4,400 full-time equivalent students this semester, which is we're about maybe 20 off from where we were last fall.
It's kind of segues to that next and probably last question. And I'm going to ask all of you this. How is this accreditation issue and COS 2.0 and the whole process over the past 7-8 months affected your relationship with the community? As far as what people are talking to you about, how you go to them, what sort of feedback you're getting, or any other interaction you have with the community, because the community is a really big part of a community college, and your relationship with it is important. Anybody want to start with that?
guess I'll go. And just to add to Jennifer's little speech there, we did bring back summer school as well. Yeah, summer school. Yeah, summer school. Yeah, can't forget about that one. That one was a that one was a very big one, and that was a very big concern about students and wanting to bring summer school back, and COS brought it back.
Now you just earned extra credit.
Thank you. For example, when I have a COS T-shirt on and I'm just walking through the supermarket, and there are possible chances you are going to run into high school kids like, oh, you go to COS, like I heard it's closing down. It just, I believe that this has opened it up so much bigger, and I feel honored to be in the loop and be able to answer the students' questions, whether they're former or present or even future students coming to the campus. Just them just being aware of, of course here in the college is closing down, and just me being able to answer the question, that's not true. We, faculty, administration, board of trustees, students are doing whatever it is possible to keep the school functioning and up and running, and whether we're saying, whether the question of you being the fear of, the school being not accredited, that should not be a problem.
Anybody else want to go?
Yeah, I'll just keep it short. I, as a board member, for those in the community that have shared or are in public office, that they've come up to me, I think, with that kind of sympathy, how are you doing, at first, and that's gone away now, because obviously if you've held a public office, you've been in this position of some sort, maybe not quite to this extent. But I think for the communities that I belong to, but I'm also in Visalia, and I spend a little bit of time in Hanford and have relatives that live there, I think accreditation maybe at first may have had some of the negative implications that we've heard about, but I think it's brought a great awareness to people in our community of just how important it is. And I've heard people say, well, I knew it was there, I went there, but boy, what would we do without it? And I think it brought it to the forefront of some people again. Bob wants to say something. Do you have your hand up?
Bob Liddy. I'd like to comment on just what Laurie was saying. I think the communications with the community has been good. We get it through our Chamber of Commerce bulletins, we get it through the newspapers. We've had more information on what's going on in COS the last year than we've had in a long time, and I appreciate it. I am involved with some of the programs, and I'm very pleased in how the Tulare campus is going. It's doing quite well, and there's been a lot of challenges, but I think we as a community are better informed now than we've ever been of what's going on, and we are comfortable, speaking for myself, that we're moving in the right direction and doing a good job.
Yeah, I think that in the interactions that I've had out in the community, I think that the community kind of went through what the college went through. It was that initial shock, how did this happen? Then there was the, okay, whose fault is it? And then it was, okay, how do we fix it? And I think that's kind of, normal progression. It's like the grieving process. It's a normal progression. And I think that we're all past the, how did this happen, into the, how do we fix it and how do we move forward?
Kevin, can you pull up the website and go to the accreditation page? While he's doing that, I just want to say I'm an alumni from COS, and telling you it built the foundation for my education. And I, serve as a mentor for a number of students. In fact, one of my students just texted me. He's a graduate student at USC right now. And I'm constantly talking about COS and how proud I am to be an alumni. I moved to the big city of Los Angeles for 20 years and then came back as a dean and now vice president. And it's interesting being in a smaller town, and everywhere you go, people ask about COS. If I was still in Los Angeles, they would have no idea who I was, but I'm in the at the hairdresser, and she says, oh, all my clients are coming in and say COS is closing. And you tell them that your client is the vice president from COS and we're not closing. So I figure the hairdresser is going to tell everybody. So it's constantly On top of that, in my role, I'm what's called the Accreditation Liaison Officer. And so my role is to also connect at the state level and at with the commission. So I have spent a lot of time alongside Stan and Thea as well, all of us. Really, I'm in constant communication with the commission, giving them updates on where we are. I just spent Friday with Dr. Ozturk in Oakland with the commission in a 4-hour workshop and letting them know we're here, here's what we're doing, we're going to be at everything we need to be at, and we're learning everything. I was at Monday with Brent Calvin at a workshop from the Chancellor's Office. Again, you know, we're in the middle of finishing up our report, which I'm happy to say that we printed a 324-page report today that's now to our editor. We're very excited about that. So my role is really being at the Chancellor's Office, asking the questions, telling them what we're doing, keeping them updated. So I've had to do a lot of that at the state level as well. And then the last part of it is visibility. And so one of our big roles, and the question came up about student learning outcomes earlier, is making sure everything we're doing is transparent and visible. So we have an accreditation website, and Kevin, if you can click on outcomes assessment, right here, any community member, any student, anyone can go in and click on course outcomes or program outcomes or institutional learning outcomes and see what we're doing. Click on course outcomes, and you can select a discipline. Let's pick anatomy, because anatomy teacher's sitting next to me, but they're all on there. So anybody can search and see what our outcomes are for every class. And that's not something we had before. And so it's all about visibility now, making sure that we're accountable and what we're doing is transparent and visible. So you guys can go play with our website and look at the different outcomes. You can see them at the program or course level. So those are kind of the things that we've been working on jointly with our academic senate. Everything's been a joint effort. So, but those are some of the things that I've been doing.
Only 20 more minutes, Paul.
2 more.
All right, here we go. No, you know, at my level in the community, at my position level, I engage with a lot of other elected officials and administrators, and I think the initial reaction, Thea hit it right on the head. It was those stages of grieving, but then I would follow it up by saying, at least in their interaction with me, there was an immediate sense of confidence. I think while people were scared and then wanted to blame somebody and then wanted to figure out what to do, there's never been a doubt in anybody's mind that we were going to be able to successfully correct this situation. And I think that comes from a genuine confidence that this community has in College of the Sequoias. It's an institution that means too much to this region to not succeed. So I felt an overwhelming sense of confidence and support from the very beginning, you know, people being behind us. Some of them not understanding the full scope of what this is might trivialize it just a little bit. I know internally we've worked tirelessly, but it was interesting for me because I have that exposure, and then I have your mid-level exposure where you go to church or you go to the supermarket and I'm in my COS t-shirt and someone will still come up and ask me about the college, and now it's maybe a parent or it's students who are at the college. And then I'll go to Sunday dinner and it's my own nieces and nephews who are graduating and applying and coming to COS. So at multiple levels I've had the opportunity to respond and share and hear, and in everybody's responses it's been one of positive support, confidence in the college, confidence in the community of Visalia, Tulare, and Hanford to be able to succeed and correct this situation. So while we've been through a lot, I think there's no doubt we are a better institution now, and we're becoming better. We've all mentioned tonight how important it's going to be to implement and to hold ourselves accountable. And I think the change in culture has begun, but it's not complete. It's going to take work and constant effort on our part, and we've got the right structures in place now for people to generally be able to hold each other accountable and not get angry. You know, see, it's the idea that we can hold each other accountable and not be putting someone else down or making them feel bad. So I think we've got something that's going to be built to last.
I'm Dick Hamilton, retired staff member, faculty member, and cares a great deal about the college. and I've seen tremendous change. I'm very, very impressed with the work that the people here have done and are doing. I see the culture, from my point of view, has tremendously changed already. However, I think that something to look down the road to is the total communications system of the college. It's been alluded to, but I think you mentioned the 2-lane highway. I think it's a 3-lane highway, and the 3rd lane is community. And I feel that over the last 20 years or so, I feel the college has done a very inadequate job of maintaining communication with the community. It's a two-way street in a way, because the community should be concerned and be involved as much as possible. But I don't think the college has been as aware as it could have been about the effect of the programs within the college that do have external attention. And among those are the athletic, the teams, and the performing arts groups, and the school newspaper, and others that at one time I thought were extremely strong in colleges of boys. I realized that the community has changed. I realized the whole nature. A lot of people in the community have had no connection whatsoever with the college, where at one time a large percentage had attended the college or had students that they knew that were in the college. And I know that has changed. But when I go to campus events, I see very few students involved in the sports program. I see them, I don't see them in attendance. I don't see many people from the community that used to be so supportive of the program in many ways, including contributors to the foundation who no longer seem to be involved. And I feel that I know the accreditation is the #1 priority right now, but I think that thinking should be going to not just marketing, but what I call public relations with the institution, with the students themselves, the communication within the college, with the retired staff. The last faculty meeting, retired faculty member I attended was 17 people. And I know that there's at least 200 or 300 that could, or retired, not just faculty, but classified staff that could be involved in some way. And in addition to that are the former students. And there are a lot of them out there. And I think the foundation is working. I think tremendous change. But I do think that should be a major priority, because it's a great reason.
Okay. Do you have any response?
No, I think Dick and I have had a number of conversations about this, and I think he mentioned a couple of really good points. We're not alone as a community college or even an institution in having to recreate a little bit how we do public relations, I think, as you defined it. You can't really rely solely upon local media. That's not their only job. And at the same time, I think we've come through, as Jennifer mentioned, pretty significant budget cuts where there are some costs associated with it, even if it's just in time, but certainly in also actual materials and resources to build systems for communications that reach out to the community, that do that in a consistent way. So I think there's no doubt that through this accreditation, what needs to come out of this for us, in every other way, we've got renewed analysis of the working models. That has to happen in public relations as well. And as Dick mentioned, a combined effort now between the college and the foundation to make this a priority and to look at what our traditional models have been and enhance those or actually recreate them, I think is a nice next step after we finish the initial accreditation response.
It's kind of funny you mentioned that, because this is being live streamed to the COS website, and the campus student newspaper is here also doing the same thing, live streaming to their website. And it's also kind of ironic that today the COS Public Relations Department announced they had just received an award that right, Kevin? So
Yes, sir.
they're doing some things better. So congratulations. I think one of the last remarks that Stan made was COS is very important to this community. And that relationship is very important. It needs to be continued to be strengthened, and I think that this whole process is helped strengthen it. And we in the community certainly wish COS good luck as they go through this. We'll be continuing to follow it. Good luck in presenting the report. It gets shipped out next week, I guess. The visit from the ACCJC in November, and then we'll probably hear almost as soon as COS does about the results in February and what steps that we all take from there. I want to thank our panel tonight for their presentations. Dan Carrizales, thank you all for being here. Just a reminder that we're off schedule again next week. We will actually have our October forum a week early, next Monday, October 7th, and it will be a discussion of domestic violence. It's Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So we'll have a number of people here to talk about that. In November, we've got a very special forum, Preserving the Charm of Downtown. And once again in December, local historian Terry Holman will be back to talk about some history issues. So we hope you'll keep those in mind and join us for those 210 Connect forums. Thank you very much for being here. Good night.